Okay, hello everybody. I wanted to share some amazing work by young word scientist Nemo, who I was working with in a tutoring session, and he just did this wonderful thing. We would, in between sessions, he would look for words that he was interested in investigating with me, and between our sessions, the word truce came up for him, and so he was curious to check it out. When I asked him to send me, his work using the structure and meaning test, he did something, just a brilliant scientist idea. He organized his work in a way that I just wanted to share. So this is what I got as an email from him. The first thing he did is he took the information from Etom Online here. So he's got that starting place. And then what I really loved is this. One thing I really loved was this chart he created where he's laying out his various hypotheses and the evidence that he's got. So his first hypothesis over here, when it first came to me, it didn't have this part. And I'll just see if I can get rid of it for a second. So he just had TRUE plus CE is what I received. Now, when I talked to him and we made comments here together, I pointed out that whenever you make a word structure hypothesis, you really want to actually have the rewrite arrow and the result. And it was fascinating because when I did that, as soon as I typed the result of his hypothesis, he could see the problem, that if there were a CE suffix, that it wouldn't replace that single silent T. So he really instantly got that point of how valuable it is to do it. And I modeled over here for him this idea that, well, we do know that you can drop single silent T's, but that happens with vowel suffixes, and that wouldn't happen here. But what I really also loved was that, so his second hypothesis was that truce could just be a base. But you see, he's seeking out, he's perceived a connection between the idea of true and truce as a good idea, and he's got evidence of that from Etom Online, because we see here in the listing for true, Douglas Harper points him to the word true. So he's got good evidence that they're in the same etymological family, and therefore they clearly share a meaning. But the structure hypothesis is having problems here. But what I love is by including one of his hypotheses that truce could be a base, he's free to dive down as far as he wants, because he can always just return to the idea that truce is just a base. In the structure test, he notices that he couldn't find the CE listed as a suffix. He did some work on the word searcher, and you see how he's telling me this information? I can know so much information, but what he did, he used the $ plus the CE in the word searcher to see if he could find words that made sense. He thought about the word once obviously came up, but again, we would have this issue of this E wouldn't be replaced by a vowel suffix or a consonant suffix. So, but he's got some information here about what he thought. But of course, truce would pass them as a base. TRUCE as a base would pass the structure test, as it would just be a base. He looked at the meaning test, and he sees that TRUE is related in meaning to TRUCE, which has the evidence right up here. And they both share this common ancestor, the root TREOW, however that's pronounced. Then here he had what he had labeled as conclusion. I suggested that maybe for using this chart, he might want to reword that to say something like conclusions based on current evidence, because he understands that we can draw a certain conclusion now, but if further evidence comes, that idea might change. So he had written this instruction, and I just did some. So we thought that this analysis was the right one, by which he meant the word TRUE plus CE, but we think that they came from the same ancestor. So I guess we figured out what he's saying is that true and truce came from the same ancestor, the same root, but became too different to be from the same base family of meaning. Now that's an interesting way of putting it. I think we could work on the wording there, but the idea that they've started from a common root, but they've grown into different bases. That's a key insight. Now they comment here that we're not, and when they say they, this was Nemo and his mom working together. We're not entirely sure about the CE, but it doesn't seem very likely. So that's when this is what they're asking me the question. But my, oh my, how wonderful to get this question with all this background so he can see all the great work that he's already done. He's got, so his conclusion based on current evidence so far was that truce seems to be the base. I hadn't caught this, but it would have been what we'd want to get used to putting this in angle brackets in this way. But they didn't make a matrix because maybe I said that, I'm not sure. But you could make a matrix. I'm assuming we could find something. But they also are pointing out here that they looked at this video that I shared from Gina Cook, which I'll share a link with. It's just a wonderful investigation of true and trees and things. Now, what he did do, as well as this chart that I'm going to recommend, I'm going to make a blank version of this that I'll make available to you. But what a great way to record your thinking through the structure and the meaning test. Of course, in this case, he's got 2 columns because he had 2 hypotheses. You could certainly make more. But he also went to the mini matrix maker and made this matrix and included his word sums. So he has all of this, which is great. But I'd love, again, by working with the matrix and the word sums, look at the question. When we add the consonant suffix th to true, the silent E should not disappear. So he's recognized something very interesting. Maybe this th suffix doesn't actually belong on this matrix because following the conventions, you wouldn't drop that E. So this is where we got to that, to try and understand what's going on here. But what I think the only safe conclusion right now is that we don't have evidence that the word truth is actually, where do we have truth here? Yeah, we don't actually have evidence for that word sum or any of the ones that have th after it, because consonant suffixes don't replace single silent t's. So what we have to do is understand how are the words true and truth related. It may well be that a good way to think about it is that it might be simply like truce and true. They could share the same root, but not necessarily the same base. But that's something that we can investigate farther. But I just had to share this because I just think that Nemo is really just a brilliant scientist, and the fact that he came up with this structure to organize his thinking so he could explain it to me, this is just great. So I'm hoping that other people will make use of this same chart, that Nemo's structure and meaning test chart, if we want to call it that. I mean, he can come up with a better name than I, but I'll make a blank one available, and you guys can make use of it and maybe share your questions using this chart and explaining your thinking. So great stuff, Nemo.